Well. Welcome back to Krown's Keto Cave. Wish you a happy and healthy and profitable start to your Friday morning over here from actually a bright and sunny Helsinki, Finland. Cold as fuck still, but the sun is right in front of my face, as you can see, so everything's washed out. But that does actually offer up a lot of opportunity with regards to what's going on in the higher time frames today. So today is actually going to be quite an important day to look at closures, not just for traditional markets, but also the weekly closure for CMEs, which should massively influence Bitcoin's closure coming in on Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. We're talking about the weekly right there. Of course, dailies to be considered as well. And there are going to be some pretty damn big opportunities actually staring us in the face, I do believe, coming into this next week of trading, all hinged upon where things end up likely today, confirmed for sure on Sunday. So we'll definitely be talking about that. But before we get into it, I do want to say that, I do want to wish you the best and the happiest of the happiest as always before I forget. Actually, I think I forgot yesterday, so I do apologize about that. Always want to be wishing people well, because why the fuck not? I mean, if everyone wished everyone else well, I think that would be for the better. It certainly wouldn't be for the worse. I'll put it that way. Anyways, actually getting a live stream right over here. I want to show the Krown trading application, which is going to be getting a major cosmetic update coming in later tonight. You're going to see this thing completely beautified by our absolutely lovely creative directors, which I'm really, really excited about. So stay tuned for that. It should be probably like around, I don't know, later on Friday Pacific time. We'll call it that. I don't want to give a specific time because who fucking knows with that kind of shit. But I'll probably be around sleepy sleep time for myself. Anyways, there are some very interesting things going on right here, as defined by the metrics, especially open interest with critical focus on the open interest. We've actually seen open interest come down a little bit. More importantly, we've seen open interest essentially be flat here. I don't really consider like a $50 million move in open interest as all that interesting. It really means very little. But with open interest actually coming down just ever so slightly here, but more or less staying steady, is going to offer up a little bit of a bias, which we're going to discuss when we get into the actual charts. But keep that one in mind, because we do see open interest more or less staying flat, technically down a little bit. Fear and greed index is coming down a little bit, hanging out below that 40-ish region. So we are still in the fearful zone, and total market cap is actually rising a little bit. So we should take a look at that today, because there may be some things shown on the total market cap that are not being shown on Bitcoin's price action chart itself. Anyways, with all of that said, let's get into the actual price action itself. Again, keep in mind open interest coming down a little bit, but more or less steady and flat. So let's go into the actual price action right around here. Let's go to a lower time frame to start this one off. Very rarely do I start off with the lower term time frames, but we do see, again, price action coming up a little bit. We did hit our 9150 essentially. Did we hit 9200? No, we did not hit 9200, but we did hit our 9150-ish target from yesterday. Well, hold on, we did get up to 9170-ish region. So do I think that 9200-ish region is tapped? Yes, I would consider that. We are right in the midst of that blue box territory. However, no closes above on even any of the lower time frames. Want to see at the very least a 4-hour total close above the 9200-ish region, or a 12-hour above 9150 probably does it. Of course, higher time frame is going to be better, but I do understand that time is of the essence. Anyways, more importantly, we're seeing price action essentially kind of float to the upside from yesterday. We saw that $200 move, what exactly was that? Yeah, about a $200-300 move from this price point right around here. I do feel quite nice about that, as we did say that was likely to happen yesterday. The next real piece of price action, though, is what happens at this next blue box territory. Are we setting up for an actual bust through where I'd kind of target a move another $300 higher towards 9550, 9600? Or are we going to put in a nice sort of local high right here and come back down to the lower end of this region, perhaps down around 8,500 once again? Well, I would say that with open interest essentially saying more or less flat, it has certainly not gone up, more importantly, while volume also coming down and price action going up to the tune of about 200, maybe even $300 from yesterday's point. That actually is a little bit more on the bear side, and would put the bias a little bit more on the bear side just from that metric in and of itself. But of course, as always, the best thing to be doing right now is to be going level by level, as I've been saying. So if Bitcoin does close above this region, then yes, I would target a move another $300-400 higher, and realistically, I would more or less switch my bias back up to bullish once again, just like I was bullishly biased as long as Bitcoin was above 9,600 right and over here. And when when Bitcoin broke 9,600, that put in the bearish bias, heading us all the way down to about 8,500 or a little bit lower than that at some points. This area acts as the same for myself, although it is a little bit more an aggressive look on this one. I do want to be very clear in stating that more conservative traders will wait for this area right around here to be broken, 9,550 to 9,600 region on, like a 4 hour at the very least, perhaps, preferably a 12-hour. But I do believe that this would be one of the times to where it would make sense to get a little more aggressive. Anyways, more importantly though, we're going to see the weekly close for CMEs today alongside traditional markets as well, and I do think that both these are going to play together essentially. So the big thing that I'd be keeping an eye out as I go over here to my CME chart is where do we close in relationship to the 10 simple and the 21 exponential moving average. There's a couple of obvious trades going on right here, and I do think that the most obvious trade is that if Bitcoin does confirm above, especially the 10 simple today, which is around 90.50ish region, and there's about a $50 premium on price action right here between CMEs and spot, so that would be putting spot somewhere right around 9,000ish even. If we do close above there today, then I would say coming into next week, we very likely are going to reach towards that 9,600ish region and probably beyond. But here's the thing: it's a long day to go between now and the daily digital closure. CME is going to close at 5 p.m. Eastern time, I believe it is, or maybe that's Chicago time. I always get confused with that one. But somewhere around that time, so we got another 12-ish hours of trading left perhaps. By the same token, if we close below the 10 simple, it doesn't really help any sort of biases. If we close below the 21 exponential moving average, that's where I can really start to have biases on price action once again, and I would be looking for a further breakdown overall, at the very least, really realistically to the lower 8,000s, like the 8150ish territory that we spoke about earlier this week, and overall I'd actually be looking lower than that, probably back down to the mid to low 7,000s. Now, keep in mind that traditional markets have been running price action as well, and getting getting it more or less right as far as Bitcoin goes over the macro. And I'm not going to go through the full explanation on that because I've been doing that for the last couple of weeks, and I don't have enough energy left in the tank to to do the whole explanation right now. But I did post a Twitter thread, or my most recent post on Twitter is a Twitter thread explaining the correlation. So for the people who happen to give a fuck, definitely go check that out. For the people who would rather just say that's wrong without any sort of factual information, well, have some math in your fucking life and go check out that thread. If not, all good, man. I'm not here to force you to do anything. I'm just sharing my opinion for better or worse. Anyways, looking at this right and over here for traditional markets, if the weekly does close like this, it doesn't really give me all that much. But more importantly, when we go down to the daily, we do see that yesterday opened up exactly where I put that alert to begin with. Yesterday, sorry, let me explain this. On yesterday's video, I had an alert on SPY saying if this alert gets ticked off, especially on open, then I would be bearish off this. What do you know? The first thing, as New York Stock Exchange opens, we cracked that. I believe my alert was 304.5 or 303.5, whatever it was. It gets ticked off immediately at the snap of a Nicholas Martin's fingers right there, and that's actually going to make me have a little bit of a bearish bias on this. And I do think that we're more likely to continuation down here towards the 295-ish region, maybe even all the way down to 290-ish region. Now, here's the thing: just because I do think that traditional markets are coming back down, probably to test around the low, I wouldn't necessarily get too bearish on this overall. And the reason why this is relevant again to Bitcoin is because I've been shown for a long time, they are more or less correlated on the macro, and that means that if traditional markets are going to be putting in a low in this region right around here, and we can retest the low for sure, which I actually think is kind of likely here, then that would still be relevant to Bitcoin, because it would say that, I do want to be looking for long-term buys. By the same token, if we really start to destroy these lows, and when I say destroy these lows, I mean going below the weekly 200 simple and 200 exponential moving average down here, which is way far away. It's at 265 right now for reference. Then that's when, people talking about $4,000, $5,000 Bitcoin, or maybe even lower than that, actually does start to make sense. But for right now, the question is, are we going to be able to hold in this region right here and rally back up? Is this whole coronavirus just a washout before trying higher, or is this actually going to get sustained? And I can make the case for both, but more importantly, I can make the case that regardless of whether this exact price point right here is the actual low, I don't think that this goes much lower. The reason why I say that is because anytime we see a signature like this on volume and volatility, historical volatility percentile to be more direct, and also and even the RSI to a lesser extent, we do see major lows being put in. And to kind of backtest this one a little bit, we do see, and the big focus here is on historical volatility percentile. Anytime that this thing is red, especially on a daily or a weekly, those are major lows. I mean, the weekly is even more powerful. So we'll focus on this one so we don't have to go all the way through. But we do see that once it starts printing red, we're getting close to the lows here. Now, of course, it can go a little bit lower, absolutely. But when we couple that up with the fact that, well, actually, the more that I look at the weekly does look like it probably wants to go lower. I mean, shit, it wouldn't be asking for too much to get back down to 275. But my point is that the lows are relatively near. Anytime that you see red being shown on this, we're at major pivot points, both the upside and the downside. Same thing right on over here, flashes red on the lows, pops back up, then we come back down, retest the lows, actually about half a year later. I remember this one quite fondly. But the lows are in, and now is a big buying opportunity. So that's really what I want to see in relationship to Bitcoin. I want to be measuring these two things up. I want to be looking at when traditional markets are most likely to be put in a low, and that was going to really confirm my long-term analysis on Bitcoin that I would like to be, an actual accumulator. The question is how far do we get down before that price point actually happens? Anyways, just going a little bit further on this one. Again, back testing it. Anytime that we do see red, we're talking about major lows right here, right here, right here, right here, right here, right here, right here. I actually remember this one quite well as well in 2011. Right around here, again, this one does flash red, and we do end up lower. This one was pretty fucking nasty, to be fair. But again, the lows were damn close. We're getting to extremes, and when we get to extremes, that's the time to be looking for, for those counterplays. So this, to me, if I am looking at the weekly, it actually does probably imply that we do head a little bit lower. 275 is an area of interest to myself, and then obviously the 200 simple and 200 exponential moving average are going to be major areas as well, and they're about $10 lower. So where does Bitcoin find itself? If traditional markets get down around there, perhaps low 8,000s. Maybe mid to low 7,000s. We'll have to kind of monitor that one as time goes forwards. Looking at the weekly, though, I do still think that the weekly suggests that it's actually still possible that we actually do put in a low right here and then rally back up. But again, going back down to the daily, it's kind of revealed that this is not healthy price action. This rejection was had extremely quick. Major moving average cross into the downside, namely the 21 and the 55 and the 10 simple, all getting bearish crosses on like the same tick almost. As the bounce gets rejected, plus fall through to the downside back below some major moving averages like the 200 simple and 200 exponential moving average on a closing basis. Not necessarily the picture of health and fitness right there. But like I said, even though I do think that this has a little bit more downside to go probably overall, which can take some time, I don't think this is like, financial meltdown area. And we'd also not want that, at least historically speaking. That does not bode well for Bitcoin. Well, we haven't really seen a financial meltdown, but anytime that traditional markets have like a 10 to 15% correction, we see Bitcoin having 70% plus corrections. So, I'm doing some bad math in my head, some bad mental math. That'd probably send Bitcoin back down to the pits. Anyways, what I look for today to kind of be obvious of continuation, or negating what I'm saying, it would be either a daily total closure, especially above about 309.5, 310ish region. If SPY can do that, I would look at this as not just a good local low for the short term, but also a medium term. We're probably gonna test up next week towards like 320ish region once again. But what I think is more likely, especially given yesterday's closure, is we're probably going to get continuation down to the 377 here, somewhere down around like 295 to 296, and you're gonna have another short-term time frame bounce there as well. That will be most obvious if we do essentially just tick below that $300 number that we tested yesterday. Not anything too scientific here, but pretty damn well clear and defined ranges, just like Bitcoin when we go back to it running over here. So what I would say is that Bitcoin on the daily actually does look good. I actually do. If I was just looking at Bitcoin on the daily, I would say that I like what I see. I do see that daily Stokes are pointed back up. We do see that daily RSI breaking back above the exponential as well, and confirming this, or sorry, I guess this is better said on a 12 hour. I think we were looking at this the other day. Yeah, 12 are breaking up north over here as well. Now, I would look for this to get back around a little bit deeper into the neutral zone, somewhere around like the 50s, the upper 50s to maybe even 60, and then I'll be looking for a pullback off that. Now, you can't really make measure moves off these, but I do trust formations more that I see in the RSI than I do on price action. So I would say that, if I'm just looking at Bitcoin, it actually does look like we might have a little bit more to go here. But again, going level by level, the obvious areas, again, are a 4-hour total closure above about 9,200, or even even if we just tick below 9,000, this very likely is going to fall all the way back down to like 8,700-ish region. Now, don't let this one confuse you down here. This blue box territory right here, if Bitcoin does come back down and test it, it's very unlikely to hold. It'll probably have a short-term bounce, but it is very unlikely to hold. We're going to see all lower time frame momentum oscillators turn back down. We've got 4-hour Stokes right around here. We do see a trend line forming. I do want to say that, but to test this trend line, we actually would come all the way back down to the edge of the bullish control zone. So it wouldn't be all that problematic to do, and it would kind of be helpful, or constructive as well. But what I want to see is how is this comparative to the other time frames. Oh, and I just realized historical volatility percentile on our lower time frame still contracting. So again, we see open interest saying, technically it went down. I'd say it's more or less flat. We see volume going down, price action going up, and historical volatility percentile also contracting over the whole. I do still think that this is a little bit more geared towards the downside, even though looking at straight up price action, it actually looks okay. But let's go over and check out the 3 hours. The 3 hour kind of in the same sort of posturing. I think yes, indeed it is. 3-hour Stokes way up there, but that's it's not a death sense, in any way, shape, or form. But when all these things start to turn together, we typically do get some nice follow throughs on those price action. Same thing with the 2 hour as well, coming in from the same area. And hourly is floundering around. So they are all going to line up relatively soon. So to me, that says that we likely get another test to the upside. We probably do test 9,200 again, but until there's a nice higher time frame closing above that region, I do think it's an area of major fackage. Now we do have a golden cross in the hourly right here, so it's going to the fucking moon. But my point is that there's a lot of things going on that I think matter quite a bit and would be very obtuse to what Bitcoin's showing right now. So this would actually be a damn good way to kind of test that theory. Is Bitcoin correlated to the traditional markets? If Bitcoin is correlated to the traditional markets and traditional markets head down today, I would expect Bitcoin to top out around 9,200 and head back down below 9,000 again. If Bitcoin is not correlated with it, then I would expect traditional markets to go down today, and then Bitcoin to close a 12-hour or a daily above 9,200. That would be the first big. What's it called? Obtuse sort of price action towards that theory. The dagger towards that, like the nail in the coffin for that not being likely anymore, is if Bitcoin can get back above 9,600. That's where it's like, okay, this theory is null and void. But for right now, I do still think that is relevant. Even though this price action looks very, 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 very constructive in this region, I am apprehensive just based upon those things, and also based upon the fact that it seems that a lot of people are like very bullish right now. But it always feels like that. It always feels like you're the only one who's thinking differently, right? It's like what do people always post on crypto Twitter? It's like, while everyone was selling, I was buying. So I'm so smart. Like, look at me, But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do as an analyst. I fucking hate analysis. What I like is trading. What I love is trading, actually. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your analysis is. It matters if you can trade it. Well, as a trader, of course. Now I understand that most people on the crypto YouTubes and crypto Twitters and whatnot are analysts, because that's how they make their money off of like YouTube ad revenue. I don't know how the fuck that can work, because like mine would not be livable off of like ever, but then again, I don't really promote it all that much. But yeah, looking at the 10-hour right here, as we get to kind of like the more medium time frames, there are some problematic things we do see. We do see potential hidden bearish divergence in play here. Now, again, it's really not going to be confirmed until we actually take out our current low, which is basically right around $9,000 even. And you do see the nice 200 exponential moving average coming right in this region as well. So this is going to be a good pivot point now. If Bitcoin does break below 9,000 or even just test back down to 9,000, I do believe we will see, probably all the way back down to like at the very least 8,800, but most likely 8,700 before the next like short-term bounce. The thing is here is that we are going to be working on hidden bearish divergence. Of course, we got actually a couple of major ones right there, especially namely this point. Now this one is a little bit further away, so we could go to a little bit of a higher time frame and see if we get the same sort of issue here. And we actually don't. We actually do not, which is interesting to me. Actually, very interesting to me. So perhaps perhaps it's going to be the wrong read, because if you are going to be using a 10-hour and you're going all the way back on over here, that's a little bit too far away. And a 12-hour doesn't even have a present, and that's only 2 hours higher. So what's more likely here? Well, I don't think that is going to be the right read. What is the right read, though, is what we spoke about yesterday with the hidden bullish divergence on the 3-day. The question is, how much more does that have to play out? A lot of people are going to be targeting towards the 10 simple on this one. That's at 95.50ish region. So that would suggest that we do break this more preliminary resistance right around 9200ish region on the lower term time frame. We get that, and we get that next continuation move. I really don't have a strong opinion on that. If that happens over the weekend, I would be skeptical. If it happens today, I would be bullish. But if it happens over the weekend, I would be a little bit skeptical on this one. So yeah, going across the whole crypto spheres, it's not so easy right here. The other obvious thing that I'd be looking for is a daily total close above the 21 exponential moving average, which is right around 9150ish region. So that would also be nice, and I would be looking for extension towards that 9550, 9600ish target. So right now is kind of like the time to sit back and wait as far as I'm concerned. I want to see clarity on the stock market situation. I want to see where it opens up later today, and then make inferences on that on Bitcoin. And not until I have that will I be putting in any live trades today. Other than that, I do want to say that the most obvious thing to me is just the weekly. Where do we close this weekly? Which we're going to get clarity on that situation again with CMEs closing later today at 5 p.m. Eastern time. Anywhere above the 10 simple, I would be having a bullish bias coming into next week. Anywhere below the 10 simple, no real bias, more or less neutral. Anywhere below the 21 exponential moving average, that's like 8,800ish region, obvious bearish bias, and getting ready for significantly lower prices. But here's here's the thing: we do have weekly stocks getting a little bit tired, and this is not necessarily done all that well for Bitcoin in the past when we do turn down from that region. And weekly RSI is just retesting the exponential as well. So if it does close up here, I mean, a lot of the time the first test after losing it will get pushed back. So, let me actually give an example on this on what I'd be looking for. Something like this right here. You see where it comes down, breaks it, comes back up, retests it, boom, rejection, and where was this price action? This was quite literally right around 11,500, telling you to be a seller right there. So, to me, what this looks like is that I actually do think that Bitcoin's in an accumulation, an accumulation zone right here. But the thing is that we're playing in a range between about 10,000 and 7,000. So this is like the long term, and people always want to be talking about moon or doom, like today, imminent, this second. And what's most likely to happen is we're probably going to spend a lot of time, filling out this area. And if I had to call it right now, I do think that Bitcoin does come back down to like 7,500 or 7,000 low. But again, I think it's just going to take its time. Remember, the monthly is also a little bit problematic. I haven't looked at it relatively recently, but we are just popping back up to test around the 10 simple. And more importantly, remember the negative slope on the accumulation distribution indicator, which we were showing earlier this week, which I can show right now as well, I suppose. I'm curious if the slope has changed at all with this with this current price action. I would imagine probably not. And yes, it has not changed. It's still negative. It's still maintaining that same negative slope from January, telling you that this area right over here was likely to be a trappy trap. Now on top of that, we do see monthly RSI looking more or less wouldn't necessarily say healthy, but it's saying that we're going to go sideways here a little bit. We're going to complete this range. Monthly stokes are actually popping back up as well. So this is interesting. But it's way too early to judge the monthly when we're literally just less than 1 week into the less than 1 week into this month of March. So this analysis today is probably not all that actionable, like right this second. We hit our targets from yesterday at 9150 to 9200ish region, and again, I always feel weird when I say something like that. It sounds weird and arrogant. My point is that just an easy call, just going level by level. But to get the next big play, I think that well, at least I really need to see the weekly. Of course, it's not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. You know, I'm just sharing what I'm thinking at this moment in time. But looking at this right here, it's hard for me to not kind of see this as likely coming down, just the way that all the momentum oscillators are kind of pointed right here. But that also makes me think that based off the monthly, this is not like a sell all the way down to fucking doomsday, you know, below 6,000 region. This is probably playing out at a range here. And what's most like convincing about that to me is the weekly RSI. This just looks like, you know, accumulation over a long period of time coming down in this region, rejecting the bearish control zone, and then as long as it kind of just floats its way around there, I think that we're going to see a major breakout the next time that we see the weekly RSI get back above this region right here. But that would also imply that we're going to see some symmetry between this point and where we're looking at right and over here, kind of displayed on this, on this end right and over here. If you see something like that, that's going to be the most obvious thing that we are seeing long form accumulation. It probably does imply that we do see the 7,000 or like $7,500 level again, but that's going to be a major buy, at least for myself, most likely. So yeah, let's go check out some of the altcoins and see if they have any sort of biases that can help. Or actually, before we get into that, let's go check out the total market cap. I'm curious what the general market looks like. And yeah, the total market cap chart looks more or less the same as Bitcoin's weekly chart. Not really seeing anything too different here. All the momentum oscillators are about in the same area. We're going to see weekly Stokes very likely cross to the downside. Weekly RSI doing the same thing. In fact, the weekly RSI is a little bit more obvious, rejecting the bearish control zone very obviously right there. But still, longer term, I think this is okay. It's not. It's really not. I mean, well, it's really more indicative of like long-term accumulation. However, that would suggest that we do fill out the downside of the range because we're dealing with very big numbers here. I mean, that's going to be humongous moves. I mean, $2,000 moves in Bitcoin, around, is kind of what we're talking about. And who knows what that does to the altcoins? I mean, it's just going to be fucking catastrophic most likely. Anyways, going to the daily right and over here, daily again looks healthy, kind of, like Bitcoin's as well. So I'd have, I would say if I'm just looking at cryptos, I do think that cryptos are gonna at the very least attempt higher here. I think that they're gonna stab 9,200-ish again, and it actually looks like they're probably gonna push through. Let's go check out Mrs. Litecoin. How's Mrs. Litecoin doing? Looking okay here as well. Looks like it wants to turn the corner. Not as strong as Bitcoin, but I still can't get around the weekly right here. All Mrs. Litecoin is doing is just retesting all these major moving averages. Last week we closed below the 200 simple, 200 exponential moving average, 10 simple, and 21, all in the same girthy red dildo. I mean, to me, this looks like it wants to come back down here too, towards like the $45 to $50 range, and accumulate there long term. We're going to see weekly Stokes certainly cross to the downside. Well, no, I shouldn't say certainly. I mean, if this thing closes the weekly above like $67, then yeah, definitely it will. But it's very strange because we're seeing the weekly be a little bit more obvious. We're seeing the daily look. The daily looks obviously bullish to me. The weekly looks obviously bearish to me, which is problematic because I want to see those two things line up with each other. That's when I feel the most confident. But right now, I guess I just don't feel confident. If this one does get another leg up higher alongside Bitcoin, I'd be looking for a move towards about $6-7 and look for a short-term pullback there. Let's see what Mr. Buterol is looking like. Mr. Buterol doing the same sort of thing. Did put in a little bit of a slightly, well, maybe if we go to a 12 hours, probably a higher low. Yes, indeed, it is a higher low. 12 hours looking good here. I mean, Mr. Buterol looks like he wants to reach higher towards 245, 245-ish region. Looks good. Looks good. What about the weekly? The weekly still problematic. We do have major hidden bearish divergence between this point and this point. I think that longer term, the big range that we're really talking about is really between 300 and 150-ish region down here, and we probably are going to get more tests on this trend line. We're probably going to get more tests on this trend line, and I wouldn't really be expecting a breakout on it until somewhere at this point over here in like November of this year. October, November of this year. So it can be a while. I don't think that there's a humongous rush right now, unless if it closes like a weekly above, let's call it 315. That's like the obvious area, or even just ticks above this wick high at about 363. But that's kind of waiting a little bit of time. So yeah, what else do we want to look at? Maybe we can look at Link really quick. I'm curious what the savior of this market is looking like. The actual hedge, the actual hedge. Absolutely love it, man. looking a little bit short-term toppy right here, although, it does look short-term toppy right here, but long-term it does not look toppy at all. This is a phenomenally powerful chart on the weekly. Any sort of a weekly close above 445, and I'd be looking for the next month to just be more upside. I don't have any real price targets on this one to be made. I would just be generally bullish on it. I think this one's in price discovery. I mean, maybe we have a price target here, so granted off this, but I'd imagine it's probably already played out. Yes, indeed it has. So, it's in price discovery. So the only thing to really do as far as I'm concerned is just wait for some sort of like major divergence call or some sort of like reversal dildo formation and then play that. But until then, the direction's up. Although short term, it does look like it probably pops back down to like 4.25-ish region, but I'd be looking for that to bounce it within that region as well. Again, higher time frames, though, to be 100% clear, look very, very good to me, especially if this one can close above like 450. That would look damn good for continuation coming into the next few weeks, really. Anyways, on top of that, do we have any other shitcoins that we want to check out? Maybe Tezos. Maybe Tezos has been kind of an interesting one as well recently. And this one, I think the longest running exchange is Hit BTC. This one looks a little bit more toppy. Does look a little bit more toppy to me. I think the obvious area of that change around is a weekly close above 3.25, or even just getting back to 3.25. That would look pretty damn good. Looking at the daily though, daily looks good. Daily looks like it is going to test 3.25 again. So you know what? I do think that this one probably does end up breaking through to the upside as well. It's just a nice little nice little buy the pullback right around here. Momentum oscillators are a little bit problematic, but I do think it's going to get another test up here, and then let's see if it can actually close above. If it does, then I'd extend targets towards like 410, 4.25 or something like that. But for right now, short term, I do feel confident that that it will pop back up here. Daily Stokes pointed back up. Daily RSI is very odd looking, and then of course to the downside, very, 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 very simple chart right here. Anywhere below $2.50 and bad will likely come back down to like 2 even or 210. Okay, there's a few other things that I wanted to check on. What else do we want to look at? Gold. Oh my God, gold. Wow. Powerful move, gold. Very powerful move. This is acting like an actual hedge right now. If the traditional markets really do start to crumble down here, another 10% or something like that, this one actually is acting like an actual hedge. Yesterday's daily close was exactly what you wanted to see to get bullish on this one. We said anywhere above 1650-ish region would flip the bias back to bullish, and it cleared that with flying colors. Yes, we are right at resistance on this area as well, but I don't think that that's going to stop it. I do think that this one's setting up for a very, 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 very powerful weekly close. It's probably going to see north of 1700. I'd probably see 1750-ish region would be the next major area, all the way up to like 1780 would be the next sort of resistance area that I'd be looking towards. And this one kind of has, free enterprise to enter the skies up here. Looks good to me, to put it in other terms. Anyways, I think that's pretty much it. This video has already been about 32 minutes long. Do I want? It's like 5 minutes short without the fucking whole spiel of correlations. So again, if you want that, definitely go check out the the Twitter thread which I posted yesterday. Anyways, to kind of wrap it up back on Bitcoin, let's actually. We didn't even check out expected moves. Let's do this really quick. Okay, so the relevant ranges again to the upside, 9,200. On a 4-hour total closure, or especially a 12-hour, would look pretty damn good for a continuation up here towards, at the very least, like 9550-ish region. Realistically, like 9600 probably in the cards there. By the same token, anywhere below 9,000 is problematic. Actually, I would look at anywhere below 9,000, just below this last tick, and let me just make sure that's consistent amongst all exchanges. We do see on Stamp actually 8990, so a little bit less than that. But more importantly, okay, so we'll just call it 9,000-ish region. Anywhere below there, and I do believe that you're going to see price action come all the way back down, ultimately towards like the 87-ish region, give or take like $50, we'll call it, and probably another bounce there. This blue box will very unlikely do anything for price action. I do think that if price action is going to move the upside here, it happens like relatively soon. And let's go see how that matches up with the expected moves chart. So putting them on right here, let's see how that's in relationship to the 4-hour. The 4-hour of I want to first say that the correlation, or sorry, not the correlation, but the expected moves chart with regards to historical volatility percentile with regards to a 4-hour it's not optimized for these lower time frames, but it actually does tend to work out for them pretty well, I've found. But I do want to say at the outset that it's not optimized. Anyways, it's only talking about the next 4 hours worth of price action, and right now, or sorry, at this exact price point, it would say that the probabilities are more so on the side of the upside, as we do see the top side of the first in aviation actually encompassing all the way up well above that 9200-ish level, all the way up to about 9250-ish region, and the bottom side of the first in aviation, which would say that it's less than 60% chance to go below on a closing basis, is actually a little bit above that $9,000 region. But again, that only speaks to the next 4 hours worth of price action, and this is unlikely to be resolved by then. What we really need to be looking at is a 12-hour and a daily, and this is where things get a little more interesting. So the 12-hour does show the first, I mean, this one's actually quite expanding quite a bit here, but the first in aviation, both to the upside and the downside, is not going to give us all that much. It would encompass though both of the breakout points. Now I again look at the bottom side breakout point anywhere below 9,000, our current wick to the downside, and to the upside I really want to see a close above 9,200, although taking out yesterday's wick high at about 91.71 probably does it as well, but not going to be as confident with that. And then I'd look for extension up here. But basically what this is showing us is that actually it's very much in limbo. There's no real bias here to the upside or the downside, and with momentum oscillators, they're looking okay. Not really helping out the bias. I mean, 12-hour still to the upside, so fair enough. That pretty much almost always gets it right anyways, but so I'll just leave it right there. Let's see how this is mediated upon the daily. Yeah, the daily is where it gets even more interesting. So this is where I'm getting the 8,700-ish number from, alongside just my basic analysis, coming in right at the bottom side of this first in aviation to the downside. So Bitcoin does break to the downside. I do think that we'd see a quick move there and also a nice bounce there, but it would certainly gear the probabilities, and the bias would still remain to the downside overall. By the same token, to the upside, it's certainly encompassing the area of 9,200-ish region. So again, this is talking about the next 24 hours worth of price action. So it's going to get around the week, this is going to get around the CME close for not just the daily but also the weekly. We do see the top side of the first innovation coming in right around 9,500. So it would say that the probabilities are a little bit more so on the side of the upside here, but I am skeptical. I am very skeptical in this region. Let's take these back off, and I'll start to wrap this one up. Again, it's really, at the end of the day, all that I'm doing is just going from blue box to blue box. That's all I'm doing as a trader. Nothing more sophisticated than that. All the other analysis is more so for coming up on biases, and it's just fun to talk about on Twitter, on YouTube and whatnot. But at the end of the day, very, very stock standard. If we do see a 4-hour delta closure above about 9,200-ish region, yes, I would be looking up here. It's also going to be in line with not just our breakdown from our last sort of switch up from bull to bear, I should say, but also I'm sure that volume profile is showing some activity within this region. And what do you know? We do see it kind of, well, let's actually zoom out a little bit more so it confirms what I'm saying. So Krown is always right and never wrong. No, of course not. But we do see activity right here. We do see activity right here, actually a little bit lower than that, right around the 9,400-ish level. So you know what, maybe I'm a little bit aggressive with that call if Bitcoin does break above 92. If Bitcoin breaks above 92, am I being too aggressive saying that 9,600 is the next destination and it really should be 94? Maybe that's what this would suggest, but I do think that I'm more right on this one. And of course, to the downside, where do we see these higher value nodes? We see them right around 8,700. And then, of course, down around here, right around 8,150-ish region, which I do still think is within the cards. That's also going to line up with all these major fibs. You do see that we bounced off the 0.5. We are currently testing the 382. I should just get rid of this. It's too hard to read with it. We are kind of testing the 382 right now alongside the 21 exponential moving average on the daily. So all these things are lining up with each other. We do see that this blue box is correlated with the 236 Fibonacci tracement as well. So I really like it when those things line up with each other, because it does confirm it and it does suggest that that the biases for those price action ranges and their and their resolution is pretty much is well, it's good enough to trade as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, if I did have to call it just by looking at Bitcoin, I'd say up. I would say up, but I need to see a closure above this region right here first. And but granted off like the market, well, it's the market fundamentals, just the underlying market dynamics, just namely the open interest, historical volatility percentile, volume, and price actions relationship to each other. I mean, that is bearishly biased here. with this last move to the upside. So I would be careful. If I had to call right now, I mean, looking at traditional markets, I do think that traditional markets probably do open down below that region that we spoke about, and I'd probably be looking for Bitcoin to fall through to the downside as well. Keep in mind, we do have weekend coming up, so weekend price action usually going to be some fuckery going on. I would be very skeptical of any sort of a breakout to the upside or the downside that happens over the weekend. I would look to fade that move most likely, but then again, that is just me, and I want to see it in real time regardless. But for right now, critical areas, 9,200 to the upside, looking for a $300, $400 move to the upside if that does happen, and bias goes back to bullish overall, and we probably do work our way back to 5 digits overall. By the same token, anywhere below 9,000, and I would look for continuation down to 8,700. Like I said, if I'm looking at the market in general, traditional markets and Bitcoin and everything included, I actually do think downside, but am I trading that right now? No, I'm not. I'm just kind of waiting back here and playing on the periphery. So with all of that said, I want to wish you well once again. I want to remind myself that I will not be on Twitch today. Have to prepare for a few things, also kind of recovering still a little bit, but I'm going to be fine, and should definitely be back next week, and also going to be having surgery next week as well, or sorry, not next week. Is it the week after that? Maybe it's the week after that. I think it is the week after that, but regardless, I'm having surgery, so at that point I'll probably be on Twitch all fucking day every day and do some 24-hour streams. So with that said, I want to wish you well once again. Take care, and until next time.